Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rose Ed podcast. No, Adam today, just me, and I'm joined with George. As a lot of Rose Ed listeners and watchers, if there are many of them, will all know George from a few other podcasts that we've done last season when we've covered the Championship. And obviously, as we've covered so much of the Premier League, so much of European leagues, even international football, I thought it was about time we talk some Championship. George, how you doing?
Good. Happy to be back. It's been a while, but happy to be back on the channel talking all things football and obviously today the championship. Obviously got the message yesterday and I was never going to say no. So here we are. Despite the cold weather, we're here. We're here.
We're alive. We're kicking. That's it. Obviously, your team, Millwall, not a bad start to the season, is it?
No, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. Currently 7 games unbeaten. The international break sort of came at the wrong time for us, really. I'd maybe argue the right time just to get some players back to full fitness and give some of the consistent players which are playing every week some rest. But say 7 games unbeaten going into this weekend, and we're on the up, eighth in the league currently. A few big scalps recently beat Burnley and Leeds 1-0 at home.
Yeah, two
So
massive
yeah,
wins.
we're happy so far. We're happy.
Yeah, your home form is very good of late, isn't it? I like you say you're beating Burnley and Leeds both at the Den. It is seeming to be a bit of a fortress now. I think last season, obviously, you didn't have the greatest of seasons. Neil Harris has come in, and he seems to have worked wonders.
Yeah, so the style of football has definitely improved over since the last time. Sorry, since Neil Harris was in charge. The style of football has improved, and say we're a very direct side still, but we've become really hard to beat at home. We've made the Den a fortress again, and the atmospheres have been good as usual. So yeah, so Saturday will be a test. We've got joint top of the league. Sunderland at home on Saturday. That's a test. But say we beat Burnley and Leeds recently at home, so I don't see why we can't do a number over them as well.
Yeah, obviously you just touched there. Obviously, Sunderland leading the way in the table, which I don't think any of us saw. If
No.
you go back to a couple of months ago, we were doing our league predictions. I don't think any of us would have had Sunderland top, let alone top six. I probably wouldn't have had Sunderland top six. Very young squad. Exciting though. Can't take that away from. But obviously, losing Jack Clark in the summer is a massive loss for them. But they seem brilliant, don't they?
Well, they appointed this the new manager in the summer, didn't they? French guy, and I know his name, but I'm not going to bother pronouncing it because I'm definitely going to get it wrong. But he sort of came out of the blue. Not many Sunderland fans would have known who he is, or football fans or Championship fans in general would have known who he is. But he's gone playing some really good stuff. They've got the youngest average age squad in the league at just 23.7 years old. Factually checking, by the way. But yeah, they've got a very young squad. So some very talented players. The likes of everyone would know Joe Bellingham, of course, but Chris Rigg, Romain Mundle, who's come in on that left hand side after they sold Jack Clark and is their top goal scorer this season. Wilson Isidore, is that how you
Yeah,
say his name?
I think that's
Um,
it. Yeah, and you got
yeah,
the likes of Dan
they've
Neil.
yeah,
Dan
Daniel.
Ballard at the back as well. Trey Hume. They got that. I think he's Turkish. I want to say another
Dennis
Turkish.
Sirkin.
That's it. Dennis Sirkin. I don't know if he's Turkish, but
They've got a good team. They've got a very good team, a young, talented team. And he's gone playing some good football, say. So it's certainly no fluke the way they are at the top of the division so
no,
far.
definitely not.
Only one loss all season, but they have drawn their last three and have got a few injuries slash suspensions, which gives me hope for Saturday, which gives me hope.
Yeah, I think. Well, my thing with Sunderland is obviously they've a massive achievement to be top of the league so far in the season. But like I think with any league in the world, the Christmas period is always very telling. I think afterwards you get more of an idea of how the table's going to shape up come the end of the season. Do I think Sunderland will still be top? No, I don't. I do think I think they've got a great young squad, but I think it's very thin. I think you two midfield injuries away from slipping down the table
Mm.
massively. And obviously, we'll touch on one team who are slipping down the table massively in my team, Norwich City. Obviously, George, you've your complete outside perspective, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's gone on at Norwich at the minute.
Mm. Well, I think from looking on the outside in, I think the Norwich squad is a good, solid championship team. I look at the forward options in Borja Signs and Josh Sargent. These are very good players at this level, but after maybe a good start to the season, something's not quite clicking. Maybe something's not quite clicking in goal. More importantly, with George Long, who I would know very very well
Yeah.
from his spell at Millwall,
every
is an
every Norwich
extremely poor
Because
goalkeeper.
every Norwich game, I get a message from you now. Because obviously, Gunn is now back for the weekend. Thank God, no more George Long. But obviously, every game you'd mess me like when we concede and George Long is that another long blunder. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Obviously, injuries doesn't help Norwich. Sargent's out to the new year. Nunes is still out. Gunn's now finally back. McLean's still serving his 4 game suspension. Slimani's only just come back from injury. We've got a whole load of other players out. Ono Hernandez has only just now come back. Ashley Barnes, who, by the way, I forgot even played for Norwich, by the way, as a Norwich fan. He's been out for so long. He's now back in team training. So we are getting players back, but we've been massively injury hit. Obviously, we started between the 2 international breaks, we started leading into this one now. We started that sort of period with a 4-0 win over Hull at home. Fantastic result. Great result. You know, blew people away. Then we hit a few draws, picked up a few injuries. Sargent's out, lose 2-1 to Cardiff. Then all the other players go out and three losses on the bounce with just falling down the table. Um,
Yeah. I think in Borja Signs, I think you've got one of the best players in the league there. Certainly one of the best attacking players who's top level in this division. And say if you can keep George Long as far away as possible from the team, from the Norwich goal as far away as possible, then I think you'll be all right. I do still believe that Norwich are a top 6 team and will be in and amongst the playoffs by the end of the season for sure. Just going through a bit of a sticky spell, like you said, with the injuries, etc. But I think Norwich will be up there.
yeah, I mean, I fully expect so and hope so as well. It's just a tricky period to overcome, and fingers crossed now this international break. And like you say, for you guys, this international break probably came at the wrong time, picking up form on a really good run. For us, it came at the perfect time. 3 losses on the bounce, no winning
Yeah.
6 or 7, I think it was. Needed that, get players fit, get back, and start over again. But we'll go back to the sort of the top end of the table. Obviously, joint top is Sheffield United in the Championship. Obviously, a side who stunk out the Prem last season. Um, were
Mm,
awful, god awful. But
really bad.
it's Chris Wilder's changed things around, hasn't he?
They have, and they've got near enough a brand new team. Made a lot of signings in the summer, a couple of freebies in there as well, and they're doing very well to sit where they are in this division currently. I really like the look of that Harrison Burrows who they've bought from Peterborough. I think he's in terms of the average rating I saw on Sofa Scores the other day. He's actually one of the highest rated Championship players this season at left back. Scored a late winner away at Bristol City not too long ago. Kiefer Moore, of course, up front is always a danger at this level. Can score goals.
Handful, isn't he? Yeah.
Uh, and the free signing of Callum O'Hare as well from Coventry, of course. So they've made some really smart signings, and say they've come down from the Premier League. They've got those parachute payments to their name, and they're going to be looking to go straight back up and hopefully um, give a better fight than they did last season. Because say they was dreadful. They was relegated from minute one. To be honest, with you, the right was on the wall there. So hopefully they can gain. Well, it's same this season anyway. It looks like they've got the momentum behind them. They've got the confidence back, and say that they're doing very well. I think they're probably my current favourites to definitely win the league. Anyways, I think there's still debate over whether or not Sunderland's young squad can cope with the pressure come sort of February, March time. Will they be able to remain consistent and be getting wins on the board? Whereas I think the Sheffield United team is a lot more established. They've got a manager who knows how to do it as well. And yeah, I think Sheffield United are my favourites at the current moment to win the league.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think it's definitely a toss up between Sheffield United and Leeds for me. I think what I'm really surprised with Sheffield United, obviously they had an awful season last season, and keeping hold of your good players from last season, it probably doesn't sound too difficult. But keeping the likes of Vinny Souza, who's probably been arguably the best midfielder in the
Yeah.
Championship, Gustavo Hamer, Ahmed Hodzic, the centre half as well. Obviously got Harry Suter on loan. Yeah, just having those really top quality players in that squad is obviously always going to help. And yeah, like you say, Sheffield United are definitely up there with the favourites now to win the league. I think Leeds, I think my argument for them not winning it is obviously losing Rutter, Somerville, have replaced them. Don't look awful, but I think Sheffield United, like you say, are definitely
Mm.
favourites. And when I just look at this top 6, I think it's very predict. Obviously, apart from the Sunderland and I mean, going down to fifth is very predictable. West Brom, Burnley, Leeds, Sheffield United. We all knew that. But sixth, Watford, out of nowhere. Tom Cleverley's Watford. Obviously lost Ismail Kone and Yasser Asprilla in the summer, two massive players for them. Their squad looks bang average, if not low end championship level. Uh, but somehow they find themselves in the playoff zone in November. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Watford this season?
Well, Millwall had Watford first game of the season on the opening day. We had them at home, and Watford turned us over 3-2 at the Den. And what one player which really stood out with me was that Czech for he's the one he's the
Akpom,
George
yeah.
yeah
Yeah,
Czech for that he's the Georgian one in the middle, and I think he's very tricky, got good feet,
yeah,
very creative. They've got Barr as well, the really young kid as
Franco
well
Bar, yeah.
on the wing who's been looking really good for him this season. And I don't think Watford's position is necessarily a false position. I think Tom Cleverley's doing really well there so
Yeah.
far. He's obviously got the Watford genetics. He was there as a player for a very, very long time and did his coaching badges probably through the football club as well. So he knows exactly what it takes to manage and play for the football club. And they're playing some good stuff. They're where they probably maybe not expected to be after a couple of poor seasons. For a club like Watford's level, we've seen there was in the Premier League for ages, been in Premier League in recent years. But they'll certainly be happy with where they are in the division. I think it's just I look at the table currently, and I think a lot of the clubs in that top six, say top eight, are probably where they should be in
Yeah.
terms of the stature of the football club and the money they've put into their teams. I think is whether or not they can remain consistent from about March onwards. March till the end of the season is where the league table matters. Right now, it's not lying, but it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't
Oh,
matter at this stage
yeah,
of the
no,
season.
I think you're absolutely right. That sort of like March to the end of the season, because obviously in recent years, I've known Millwall to be in that top six in March, and by the
Yeah.
end, be seventh or eighth.
Mm.
Come the end, and it's always just sort of like that little bit of consistency, that sort of just keeping that squad fit. Even Norwich almost done it. Obviously, we were very lucky to get sixth last season, but then injuries all of a sudden hit us coming onto the back end of the season, and come the
Mm.
playoff semis, we just had a deflated squad. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, no, it happens, and obviously with some of these sides, it will be interesting to see if they do maintain that. Obviously, we'll go towards the bottom. I think bottom three is probably no real surprise. Cardiff, it's been coming.
Yeah.
Pompey didn't invest enough for me. QPR again, it's been coming for them.
Yeah.
Um, but I think just above the relegation zone, you have we'll go from 19th and 20th, and then we'll talk about the 21st. You've got Hull and Preston. Both these sides were battling for that sixth spot in the playoffs last season, till the last few game weeks, and now find themselves just lingering above the relegation zone. Obviously, there is actually not many points between 21st and sixth. I think there's 10 points separating them, which is four games really. Worth of points, so it can all change around, and I fully expect it to. Um, but to find Hull and Preston, who ended the season very, very well last season, Hull were looked really good. Obviously, got rid of Liam Rosen. Can't remember his last name. At the end of last season,
Rossinia.
senior, that's the one. Uh,
Rossinia. Yeah.
Liam Rossini at the end of last season. Poor decision, if you ask me, because look where they find themselves now in 19th.
Yeah. Well, I think starting with Preston, I think when I spoke to a Preston fan earlier in the season, this sort of campaign is a bit of a write-off for them because they got rid of Ryan Lowe after the first game, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe an issue with the ownership there. I'm not too sure, but the Ryan Lowe departed the football club, and they've now got Paul Heckenbottom in, who's not actually had a transfer window to work with the team. He's not as his own players come in yet. Obviously, he'll get January the opportunity to do that. But this season for me seems like a bit of a write-off for Preston. But the issue is you can't just completely sack off the season from August, September. You've got 44, 45 games left to play, and
It's still the
they
whole
could be
season.
in big trouble. They could be in big trouble if they don't fix their ways real quickly. Obviously, they've had a player suspended for biting as well, which never looks good from the outside looking in. So I fear for Preston. Hull are a side I think they'll be okay come the end of the season, but say the decision to sack Liam Rossini is clearly not paying off. They've got some good players in their ranks. Maybe defensively, I think they're quite solid as well, but something's just missing from them. They've got João Pedro up front, who they've just signed, very experienced, for played plenty of games in Serie A. I think his name is João Pedro.
It is
I'm
João
not too
Pedro,
sure.
but it's not the
It,
João Pedro. That's
not
it's,
not G, not the Brighton one, the other
yeah, not
one,
the other one. Yeah,
the
his name
slightly
is
more
Pedro, so
experienced one.
it's very confusing.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Hull I think will be okay. Obviously struggling right now. Preston, I fear.
Yeah, I think with Hull as well. Obviously, last season came so close to the playoffs. Obviously, lost two massive players in Jaden Philogene and Jacob Greaves,
Mm,
respectively, to the Premier League. And obviously, without your key players, without replacing them properly, Hull, I think, are really having to suffer. I think Philogene obviously got replaced by ex-Norwich winger Abu Kamara, who thought he was too good for Norwich because he wasn't getting played. Um, because he played League One football last season, and there's a clear reason to why he wasn't getting played. He can barely get any minutes at Hull at the minute. But obviously, we'll move on to 21st in the league in Luton Town, which
mm.
at the start of the season were one of my favourites to finish in the top two. I
Yeah,
think before the season started. What has
yeah.
happened?
Rob Edwards is under some serious pressure, isn't he? I mean, he'll probably go down as one of their greatest managers in history, getting Luton Town to the Premier League. But considering how poor they've been at the start of this campaign, really, a lot of their fans are obviously chanting for him to get out, for him to leave the football club, sort of leave now so you don't sort of ruin your reputation type thing. But maybe from his point of view, it's like, well, I've got us here, I've got us to the heights of the Premier League. Give me a chance, maybe, put a bit of faith in me, and hopefully he can turn it around. I'm not sure. I think from Rob Edwards' point of view, I think you sort of you look at the squad, you look at where they are in the table, and look where they was last season, and the heights of winning the playoffs, getting to the Premier League. I think it's sort of just, I think he's just taking Luton as far as he can, and maybe they have to get someone else in to sort of steady the ship a little bit and regain some form and some confidence. But listen, at the end of the day, Luton are where they should be. That Luton Town are Luton Town. They're a predominantly sort of EFL. Maybe I think right now, I think Championship mid-table for a club like Luton is probably where they're about right. I think what you'll find is that their players have maybe become a little bit, say, not what's the word, not greedy, but because it might have got to their heads a little bit, the fact that they got
Yeah,
to the Premier League last season. They're on
we're in a bit of a
Premier League wages, Premier League players, and now they're back down in the Championship. They're struggling, and maybe it's a dressing room issue rather than a manager's issue.
yeah. I think there's a whole lot wrong. If I'm honest. I think Rob Edwards just seems to me to be experimenting way too much, and is sort of in his panic zone where if something isn't working, he's not going to carry on trying it and building it and perfect it. It's changing up week by week, week by week. And they didn't really invest properly, if I'm honest, in the summer. Didn't really sign anyone of any real note, if I'm honest.
Mm.
And but then again, didn't really get rid of too many players. I think only Ross Barkley left, but that was always going to happen.
Yeah,
And obviously Ross Barkley wasn't part of that squad that did get promoted to the Premier League. So that I think that main sort of squad that did get promoted is all really still there. Plus a few additions like Thomas Kaminski in goal, who's been stinking, by the way, absolutely
mm.
awful, but was brilliant in the Premier League for Luton. So I'm mind baffled by that. But yeah, just the key players aren't stepping up. Carlton Morris, Elijah Adebayo, Alfie
I was gonna.
Doughty,
I
probably
was going
getting
to
voted.
mention Elijah. I don't think he's really actually scored many this season. I think he maybe scored once this so far this season. And he was prolific for him in the Championship in the promotion season and scored plenty of goals for him
Yeah, it
in the
was double
Prem
figures
last
for
season as
Prem.
well.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of their experienced senior players aren't stepping up as well, and I think that's a lot to do with maybe the mentality in the dressing room right now. It's clearly not there, and Rob Edwards needs something fast for it to turn around because if not, it's just going to get even worse for him.
No, absolutely. But I think I mean I want to just talk about sort of like just some teams that are going under the radar for a minute because I've just got the league table in front of me, and one team that I did not expect to be where they are, and it's just not that high up the table. If I'm honest, it's not really anywhere to scream about, but it's Derby County in 12th.
Hmm.
I didn't expect. I thought they were relegation destined. Um,
Yeah,
but they
they're
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 good.
having a good season.
Yeah, under Paul Warner, I'm impressed.
Hmm. Yeah, they're having a good season, and so we had them at the Den not too long ago, and we drew 1-1 with them. Um, but let's say they got a mixture really. I think you'll find that they're a little bit inconsistent maybe. So if in their last, they've lost their last three. Granted, it was against Sunderland, Norwich, and Sheffield United. So, or was that in their last?
No, we
No,
played.
sorry,
We
that was
played
that
them. Yeah,
that was a
we went
while
to,
ago.
yeah, we
That
played
was
them.
well. So they've only won one in their last six. Sorry, and that was against Coventry. A loss in there against Stoke. A couple of draws in there as well. They seem to be inconsistent like a lot of teams in the Championship. But I think most Derby fans would have taken their start to the season currently sitting 12th.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they've really improved. I think other teams that have really improved as well this season that I'm really liking the look off is Blackburn. I think although they've dropped off a bit, but start of the season they were in the top six. They were flying, looked really good. Is John Eustace still their manager there, isn't he?
Yep,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
doing all right currently in ninth. Yep, obviously they lost Sammy Schmodics as well, which would have been a
Big loss.
huge loss because he was their main source of goals in the last campaign, the league's top goal scorer, of course. So I'm yeah impressed with Blackburn. In the other team in Lancashire, however, of course, their closest rivals, Burnley. I think Scott Parker's on fraud watch. I don't know about you, mate, but
It's so boring, isn't it? It's so
Scott Parker
boring
plays
football.
really boring football. And obviously the first two games they won very comfortably. They beat Luton away 4-1 and then they beat was it Cardiff 5-0, I
Cardiff
think it
five
was.
0 Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cardiff 5-0. And then they lost to Sunderland after that. And all of their key players have been snapped up at the end of the transfer window by Premier League clubs or clubs abroad. And since then they've really struggled. They can't score goals, mate. They cannot score goals. They signed Ian Fleming on deadline day from us, of course. He's only notched one. But the football they play is really boring, and I think a lot of Burnley fans aren't actually happy right now.
But this is the thing. I saw a pod. I think it was on TikTok. You know, these podcast clips come up like the Rose. Go follow us on TikTok.
Mhm.
But yeah, I saw one of these podcast clips, and I think it was a Fulham or Bournemouth fan, a fan that previously had Scott Parker, and was talking about the Scott Parker appointment at Burnley. And despite Scott Parker getting both of these sides up I think both of them were through the playoffs. It was the most boring football, and he coached every bit of individuality, every bit of skill, flair out of these players, and made them all system players where it's just robotic and it's not enjoyable. And I think that was said prior to the season starting. I think we're very evidently seeing this playing out at Burnley right now.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, you got. I think one example of that is Koleosho on the wing,
Oh,
who's
he's really
very
exciting
young, very
player.
talented, very direct, very talented, very good, skillful. And in the last couple of weeks, I think they've sort of just sucked it out of him, isn't it? It's very much, well, Scott Parker's style of football and his way of thinking is instead of going direct and taking your man on, it's cut inside and pass it inwards or pass it back and make another 10 passes, just consistently recycling the ball rather than taking a risk. And that's probably why they're not scoring enough goals, mate. Not enough risks being taken in the final third, and that's mainly down to the style of football which Scott Parker is implementing.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, they're very lucky to still find themselves fourth. And I think that's why they're not sort of a bigger talking point at the minute this season, and why Scott Parker isn't quite, there's not a popular opinion to get him out of Burnley. Obviously, a lot of Burnley fans I have seen, like yourself, have said, yeah, some of them want Scott Parker gone. I think most of them do. But because he's there, still in the top six, is still on 27 points, which is a very decent return for a relegated side at this point in the season. He's just about floating, but like you say, struggling to score goals. And
They'll, they'll 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 be up there, no doubt. They'll be in the top six by the end of the season because I just think they've got the firepower and the quality in their side. But they need to. Something's not clicking certainly up front for them. I think they're missing number nine because Ian Fleming plays up there, but he's not a number nine. He's a number 10, more of a second striker. So I
so,
think if they can get a number nine in and
well, look,
they're forward players on.
Lyle Foster is still there, isn't he? Or am I being
He
stupid?
is, but I think he's been injured.
He's been injured, I was going to say, because he wasn't too bad in the Premier League last season, I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, probably are missing a number nine because Zian Fleming, whenever he played for you, I always remember he was more of a 10,
Yeah.
um, more of a creator rather than a scorer. But yeah, I think, yeah, problems will arise coming through the season for Burnley. I think right now that they're looking okay, but unless Scott Parker sort of changes things up, lets players have a bit of individuality, have a decision in what they're going to do with the ball, rather than him making that decision all the time. I think we're going to have serious problems.
Mhm.
But we'll go back down the table a bit. Just another side I want to talk about, and obviously there was a bit of recent news prior to the transfer window. Is Coventry City obviously sacked Mark Robbins, who has been incredible for them. What's your opinions on that decision of the sacking of Mark Robbins?
Oh, absolute madness, mate. Absolute madness. I think it shows that there's no real loyalty in football anymore. The fact that Mark Robbins was the longest serving manager in the EFL, sacked after a bad run of form. But in recent years, Coventry went from League Two to League One to the Championship under his reign. They then was one penalty away from the Premier League, losing out to Luton in the final of the playoffs.
Also, the FA Cup semis last season.
The FA Cup semi-final last year, which I was at, I had the privilege to go to against Manchester United, where they made a fantastic comeback and only lost that one on penalties.
Didn't
VAR
deserve
robbed
to,
them off.
yeah, didn't even deserve to. They should have won it. I mean,
VAR
realistically,
robbed them off a winner.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Mark Robbins did a very good job there and was there for plenty of years, and certainly
I think he should have
he's
been given time to turn that around.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And all this is just for to try and get a big name in. I know the two name linked managers, sorry, are Ruud van Nistelrooy and Frank Lampard. Two names which are, I know Lampard's had spells at Chelsea and Everton and Derby in the Championship before, but two managers which are relatively unproven. It just, yeah, it makes no sense.
I think Ruud van Nistelrooy. If I had to pick between the two, Ruud van Nistelrooy get me a bit more excited just because of his record at PSV when he was manager over there.
Was he
Um,
manager there?
yeah, he had a fairly decent record. I remember doing some research on it a while ago,
Oh,
and
my bad.
he did. I think it was only like one season though. So like, it's again,
Yeah,
like you say, in terms of experience, still not great. Like one season in the Eredivisie is nothing. PSV, they're going to win that every other season
yeah.
anyway.
But they're the big glamorous names, aren't they? Ruud van
Exactly.
Nistelrooy, Frank
Rather than
Lampard,
Mark
legends as
Robbins,
players,
who
rather than, yeah.
knows the league in and out. Like you say, he's done fantastic things with Coventry in his tenure. Doesn't deserve to be sacked. They've had a rocky start to the season. Don't get me wrong, but they have picked up points on the board. They have looked good
Mm,
in some games. Just a bit of inconsistency, but that can iron out throughout the season. And the fact is, like the 16th, they're 9 points off the playoffs.
yeah.
They were not. I think they finished 9 points off the playoffs at the end of last season. It's a,
Yeah,
and it's so
yeah,
early on the season. I think it's a ridiculous decision.
mental, and especially with how tight the championship is this
Mm.
season. I mean, say that there's not many points separating 21st to sixth, only 10 points.
Yeah.
So if you can get on a go on a run of form, very similar to what Millwall did, of just three, maybe four wins in a row, then bang, you've shot straight back up the table and you're in and amongst it again. That's all it needed, really.
It's a
And
couple of
they've got the players to do so as well. Coventry, they've got a good squad.
yeah, like the likes of Hadji Wright, Sakamoto, Ellis Sims, Victor Torp, Josh Eccles.
Yeah,
Who's the other midfielder? Ben Sheaf.
Ben Sheaf, yeah.
Yeah, we're naming players off, we're ticking them off. They're top quality championship players with a top quality championship manager and Mark Robbins, and that's just gone down the drain. I think the owners at Coventry really they have to get this appointment right, otherwise it's going to be a whole big mess over there.
Yeah.
But we'll move on sort of like predictions coming to the end of the season. I think we've covered most of the championship table, how we think teams are doing, who's overperforming, who's underperforming, this, that, and the other. Um, but what's your top six at the end of the season?
What's my top six?
Yeah.
I said at the start of the show, I think Sheffield United for me are the favourites to win the league, and I'll back them. And I think Sunderland might do it. I do. I think they might do it in second place. Not sure about title winners, and I still think there's a question over consistency due to the age and the inexperience of the squad. But there's talent there clearly, and the manager's doing very well. So I'll go Sheffield United first. I'll go Sunderland second. I think Leeds and Burnley certainly in the playoffs. I think they're two sides which you look at and you go, yeah, they'll be in and amongst it. West Brom, Carlos Corberán, again, very good side at this level. Carlos Corberán's a very good manager, if not maybe the best manager in the division. So I'll have West Brom in there. And then it's down to that last sixth place position, which could go at the moment it's occupied by Watford. You've got Middlesbrough up there, of course, my team, Millwall.
Millwall, Norwich.
Norwich will be up there, of course. But I say any team really from March onwards, we can go on a good run of form, will reach the playoffs or can reach the playoffs. Say, and as a prediction, I'm gonna go with Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I think my top six is very, very similar. I think my top is Sheffield United. My second is Leeds. Third, Sunderland. I think they will just drop off that little bit, but still finish playoffs. Still have a very strong season. Burnley, West Brom, like you say, and that sixth spot. Again, I think my head is telling me Middlesbrough. My heart is saying Norwich. But I think Middlesbrough just do have the firepower. And those two, I think it was that win over Luton was very, very,
Yeah,
very impressive. And when they played us, I thought they were very impressive. Obviously, we drew 3-3 with them, but likes to bend Doak really do impress me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Freeze get relegated.
Uh, I fear for QPR. I think the writing's been on the wall. They've been knocking on that relegation zone for a while over in the last couple of seasons, and I think this season might be the year they go down. Um, Obviously, they lost Chris Willock, which was a big player for them. They lost him in the summer. They've also Elias Chair is injured, I think, as well, and they're going to need him to regain some
Haven't
fitness
won
and
a game at
form
home
very
all
quick.
season as well.
Haven't won a game at home all season. I think QPR will be one. Cardiff still without a manager. Still without a manager. We've had two
I saw there's
international
a
breaks.
crazy stat on Twitter the other day of like list of things of what's happened in between Cardiff
Yeah,
and a manager and then
yeah.
still not having a new one. But I think that's going to be quite telling at the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah. So you agree? You think QPR and Cardiff as
QPR and
well?
Cardiff, and I think Pompey do definitely. I think the bottom three as it is now is probably my predicted bottom three. I
Yeah,
think easily.
and obviously, so as I mentioned earlier, I think if Preston don't buck their act up, I think Preston will be in trouble. As and Luton, but I give faith that Luton will turn it around. I think they've got enough in them. I think Luton will turn it around.
Definitely. We'll go into sort of like the player accolades. Um, we'll go for who do you think is going to be the top goal scorer come the end of the season?
Well, top goal scorer currently
Or
is
her
who's the
side
it is Borja Signs.
with 11
Correct,
goals.
yeah. With 11 goals. Duncan Watmore was up there for a bit, and I hasn't scored in months after he went on a really good run at the
Yeah,
start of the
he was
season.
top goal scorer for the first couple of game weeks, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
He's
So
still eighth.
he is doing all right. He is doing all right. He hasn't scored for a while because he hasn't really been playing. But who am I going to go for top scorer? I think Borja Signs is probably the one at the moment who you're looking at,
Yeah,
as well as Kiefer Moore as well. If Sheffield United can keep their run of form going and be up there towards the back end of the season. So
there is.
I'll go with either Kiefer Moore or Borja Signs.
Okay, I'm gonna for me again, Borja Science for Norwich bias, but I think Josh Maja is my other choice. Obviously,
Yeah, yeah,
sitting on nine
that's yeah.
goals as well. Championship player of the season. Who do you think it's going to be?
Ooh, it's usually the team which wins the league, isn't it?
It
And it
is, but
is usually.
that's what they pick. I mean, my pick's always. I mean, I had Gabriel Sara is the best player last season, but you know what do I know?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, for me, it's Borja Science.
yeah.
I mean, at the minute, if we're going right now, like you ask any championship fan that actually knows championship football, they'll say Borja Science is the current best player in the championship. Um, if I'm going off right now, but come the end of the season, I'm looking at Vinny Souza, Gus Hamer,
Mhm. Yeah,
um, probably one of the, either one of them two.
yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah, not much to really add on that. I think Borja Signs is probably the front runner at the moment with the two Sheffield United boys just behind him.
Definitely. But yeah, I think that will wrap up the podcast very, very nicely. Thank you everyone for listening and watching and whatever else you're doing with this podcast. I keep going on a tangent with that. I don't know why. But yes, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much, George, for coming on and with your championship insight as always. It has been brilliant to chat with you. Um,
Pleasure.
we'll see you guys next week on the Rose Ed podcast.